Did you know that your daily impact is much bigger than you think?
Yeah, legacy isn't someday, it's every day. So join us today on the Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
And now your host, Jen O'Brien and Matt Emerson.
Well, welcome back to the Wandering But Not Lost podcast. This is episode 373, and you can find our show notes over at wbnlpodcast.com. Today, we are going to talk about legacy, but not in the way you might think or expect. Not the big, dramatic, change the world kind of legacy that we kind of tend to think about when you think about that. But we're going to talk about the quiet kind. Ooh, so nice. Quiet is a nice thing. Don't get a lot of that anymore. The kind that happens in small, ordinary, very kind of commonplace moments. Because whether we realize it or not, we're leaving a legacy every single day.
Every moment.
Yeah, in how we speak, how we show up, how we listen, or how we don't listen. It's not about someday. It really is about right now. Today, we want to flip the script on what legacy really means and how clarity shows up, not just in what you do, but in the what you kind of leave behind. Not kind of leave behind, what you do leave behind. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what legacy really means, or really kind of also what it doesn't mean. And it's often not really what you think. It's not your job title and it's not your bio.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people, that's not to say you can't have a nice, bio and track record. That's a nice, impressive thing, right? But that's not what we're going to talk about today. That's not the legacy we're talking about today. It's not the awards. It's not the accomplishments, or it's not even how many followers you have on social media. Surprise, surprise. It's how people feel after they interact with you. It's the tone that you set in a room, the way you close a conversation, the intention behind how you walk through every single day of your life. Now, I always loved that whole leave no trace principle in hiking and being out in nature, leaving the space better than you found it. That is powerful and it's awesome. And when you adopt that, when you're out in nature, I do this all the time. When you're walking around, if I see something on the ground that's not gross to pick up, you have to think about that too. But I kind of clean as I go. So in creating that kind of mantra, it has actually not only helped people not make a mess themselves, but I really dare say I'm not the only person that does that. You know what I mean? You're helping other people kind of clean it up as well, which is really awesome. And that mindset can work just as powerfully in our relationships and in the way we actually lead. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. What do I want people to feel because I was here? What do I want people to feel because I was actually here?
That's powerful to say. What do you want? That feeling of the legacy versus, I think a lot of people think legacy means I'm going to build this material thing and this empire, and that's my legacy I leave behind, or I am a humanitarian, which is powerful. Yeah. But it's really the feeling underneath all of that, not a material thing, or here's your, here is that, right? I love that. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to dive a little deeper into this, Matt, and talk about how it's the little moments that matter the most. And because you don't really need a stage or a spotlight or just to have this massive lasting impact. It really is the small little everyday things, right? Because your legacy that we're talking about today is built in the repetition. It's also in your presence,
right? How
you're showing up and your personal awareness. Okay, so maybe here's a couple examples. Maybe it's choosing. This is Matt. Okay, Matt is great at this, and I have gotten better. I think Matt maybe will agree with this. I don't know. He'll have to tell me. So maybe it's choosing to really listen fully instead of trying to jump in and be in the fixer. Right. That was my MO was especially as a manager of real estate, I'd be like, okay, I hear you. Stop, I'm going to fix it. And people just want you to hear them out sometimes. And so that's a big one for a lot of people. Or maybe you're sending a text of encouragement just because you thought of someone. Think about how powerful that is. We talk about writing notes all the time. You just have a thought of someone and then you send a nice quick text just thinking of you, or you do drop that note. Or maybe you stay calm when everybody else is being chaotic in a situation. That's an example of how you can shift the energy, right? These moments really matter, especially if you do them with the repetition consciously with intention, because they start to accumulate. So here's another example. I have a friend, actually I have a couple friends. who just decided without any fanfare, without a big announcement, which I think is really important, this part, because I also have people who are like, who will make the big announcement and then actually not follow through on it.
Right.
So a couple friends who decided they're just going to start living a healthier lifestyle. Okay. They just simply wanted to start eating better, working out, and no, it was very subtle. They just started doing it, and I started noticing it. This is what we're talking about. And over time, the two people I'm thinking about, their energy has literally shifted. Their physicalness has shifted. Their mindset has shifted and has made an impact on a lot of people around them, me included. So that's legacy, especially if that continues on and on and on and on. It's not like, here's a big announcement, look at me, I'm all good now. It's like, wow, that person has really changed, and it's making me feel a certain way, and I want to make that change. So another little reflection for you is, what am I reinforcing through what I repeat all the time? Yeah. What am I reinforcing through my repetition?
I like that story you told, Jan, and just think about when you go into any situation where you're with a group of people, and it might be people that you've known for years and years and years, or you just walk into, I don't know, like a doctor's office, or you even the grocery store. You're just around different, and kind of watching the characters in your story that are around you at the time. There usually is somebody that kind of stands out in that kind of situation, or maybe later on you'll think, well, boy, they were sure quiet when all that rigmarole was going on, or you know what I mean? It's so interesting, and those are the things we're talking about. It is absolutely not the look at me, look at what I'm doing, look at how great I am, or look how calming, or whatever it is. It's about it's about the person that is so subtle, and the actions that are so subtle that you don't even realize they're happening, but they are absolutely affecting how you are responding to that particular situation. And it's to consciously be that way and have intention about that is an art form a little bit, but anyone can do it because it is the small things. So let's talk about a couple of the ways you can do that. Let's make it real here. Here's 3 places in your life that you carry around with you that you can start leaving it better, today, as you, if you, once again, start thinking about it. Just your general space, right? Are you leaving your environment a little clearer, a little cleaner, a little calmer, and a little more intentional? And that can be physically. Mm-hmm. It can be, how you're, bringing your whole attitude into the space. So your space is one place that you can actually do that in. Your energy, obviously. What vibe are you bringing to the conversation? I mean, for crying out loud, you can be, and this happens a lot, I think, to people. You can have a certain mindset about something going into a situation, and let's say it's a negative. Let's say you have a negative feeling about that. You could go into that situation guns blazing and just be that way, or you can purposely and intentionally not be that guy, right? You can go in and maybe be quiet, maybe do listen, maybe not have to give your opinion, or whatever it is. It will change the way that whole thing happens. And I'm telling you, you might just learn something along the way, right? Mm-hmm. This is the way that works. And in your work, are you adding value, or are you just checking boxes and punching the time clock and doing the minimum amount of work you have to do? If doing that, kind of becoming the robot, is not beneficial to the company, obviously, but it is not beneficial to you at all, right? Because it just stifles creativity and all sorts of things. I think about a lot of little things that you can do, and let's chat about this for a second, Jan. A lot of little things that you can do that can make a difference. That the one thing that we've talked about many times on the podcast, especially when we're talking about gratitude, and it is the way you behave in your car.
Yeah, that was one of mine.
I mean, it's like the easiest way that you can change
easiest shift.
Yeah, just kind of change. It's like whole pay it forward, principle, right? If you get out in your car and you are not, first of all, leave 5 minutes early. That gives you 5 more minutes to be on the road. That's a little hack. That's a life hack. Leave 5 minutes early, because if you're not racing to get somewhere, you can occasionally let someone get in front of you and not be mad because they did. You know what I mean? Or there's so many things you can do to not outrage. And I think that right now, I don't know what it's like in Vegas, but here it just seems like the driving is getting more and more and more aggressive. And why? What is the purpose for that? So that's one way. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Do you think of any other ways? You
Well, you basically
mentioned a personal
the
note. So.
two that I had in my mind, but I want to share about how the traffic thing, because I have talked about that before, but it's so interesting. I am noticing something opposite, and I think it has to do with the way I'm seeing things now in my space. Meaning, I used to think that there were lots of crazy people driving. I'm not experiencing that now, but I also feel it's because I have really shifted in the way I'm so aware of that, how I can get triggered by somebody cutting me off or whatever. It doesn't happen at all as much as it used to. And consequently, I feel like I'm only seeing around me. And I think it has to do with this reticular activator. In other words, whatever you're focusing on, you'll see more of it because we filter, the science behind filtering all this information that's coming into us all the time. So if whatever you're thinking or focusing about, you'll see it. So, a great example is, I
Sure.
want to buy a car. I'm looking. I like this a Subaru car that is my future car, and I'm seeing them all over the place. And there's this particular dusty blue color that I like. And so when I see them, I'm like, that's because I'm thinking about it, and it's showing up in my space. Okay, so if I walk around going, there's a lot of crazy drivers in Vegas. I see a lot of crazy drivers in Vegas, and I've changed my mindset on that. Consequently, I don't see it as much, and I don't therefore, and then basically I've decided I'm not getting triggered by that. I guess that guy's in a hurry. I said it happened the other day. Guess that guy's in a hurry. I hope you can get where you need to go. And I just moved on because I started to catch myself and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. So there's an example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's so true. And here's another thing you need to be thinking about when you're doing this. You're not doing this to get the accolade. You're not doing this to get the credit for it. You don't know how many people you might have touched in your life. You might have. There's a very good chance if you do intentionally try to be, the better entity in the situation, you could be making differences that you have no idea about. So it's just so fascinating to really think about how far-reaching this can go. And Jan's going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But let's talk about our Clarity series real quickly, because this ties a lot into what we've been
absolutely
talking and teaching in our Clarity series. Our Clarity series dropped about a month ago with Module 1. It was called Rooted in the Unknown, that first module. We just dropped Module 2, which is called Aligned in the Everyday. We dropped that last week. And then we're dropping Module 3 in August, which is called Ignited with Purpose. And all three of these modules really are about figuring yourself out a little bit. Wouldn't you say, Jan?
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little more about what you're...
Actually, Module 3, Module 1 and 2 really get you into practices where you can find that quiet and that start to remember the reality and just start to shift your energy, right? In various ways, very simply, so that we have you walk through that in 2 modules so that you can really get to the heavier lifting, which is really powerful because we're just working on that content now. We're so excited to release it to you. To really get into what I think a lot of people are looking for. Like, there's something more here. What am I really here to do? What is my real purpose? And it's not just to go do this, have this job title. So yeah, that's really what's coming for you in the 3rd module.
Yeah, and that's
right now you can get a deal on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go over to wanderingbutnotlost.com and click on our courses tab, you can get the entire Clarity series for $33. That includes Module 1, Module 2, which I've already dropped, and you get Module 3 when it drops in August. If you wait till August to get the whole series at one time, the price goes up to $44. So you get a $11 discount if you go and jump in today. So go over and grab that over at wanderingbutnotlost.com. So here's another challenge for you. Choose one interaction today, if you know what your day is going to be like and where you're headed, where you'll intentionally leave it better. Where can you forecast in your day where you can actually try to make a difference, whether it's physically, energetically, or emotionally? So think about that and put that in your plan for the day.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about something that we need to also, there's a flip side to this whole thing too. Mm-hmm. And that legacy, can be what you're working on and how you're striving, to improve, but there could be people you didn't reach along the way. And that's the part that sometimes is the kind of missing link, or the part that we don't discuss. So what if we didn't leave it better? What if we kind of just left it a mess? And that happens to all of us. So let's just, be real about that, right? Maybe we really weren't our best self during a certain situation or during a certain time in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you were exhausted. Maybe you were reactive. Maybe you were disconnected. Maybe you were still trying to just figure things out. All of those things are valid. All those things are emotions and states and stages in your life that everybody goes through. So those things are real and really not to be, made light of or just kind of, shove under the, dust under the carpet. And because at the end of the day, you might have been just doing the best that you knew at the time, right?
Right.
So here's the deal. If someone remembers you through that lens and that chapter of your life, might not be the most positive reaction. They might not have the best view of you. But here's the thing, that's still part of your legacy. I mean, you just have to admit that you can't just make that go away. You can't just rewrite that away, even though people try to do that all the time. And that can be really, really hard. And it can actually sometimes prevent you from changing the way you do things and moving forward, because you can't rewrite the memory. You can't go back and do that. What's done is done, but it's important to make note of it and perhaps understand why, you may have brought that energy into that time of your life or into that particular situation. It's also really, really, really critical, like I just said, that you don't let that envelop your direction going forward. Right? Your legacy is not fixed. It's a living, breathing thing, and it evolves literally as you evolve. Mm-hmm. So, I've had people in my past who saw me at my most stressed, my most insecure, my most were, out of alignment time, and like I said, you can't go back. You can't rewrite those scenes, but I can write the story that I'm living right now. And maybe, just maybe, the energy that I live today can reach farther than I could really ever realize.
It's really powerful. What you're talking about there, from my perspective of the way I like to look at things, is you become aware and you integrate all the various parts of yourself. So what you just said there, and I'm just going to say it another way, is that if you become aware of maybe the way you were interacting or a previous version of you was maybe not the nicest person or whatever, and you now want to make a difference, you can't undo what has happened. However, you can move forward, but you can basically integrate that part of yourself and say, okay, it must have served a purpose at the time. And maybe it's simply the understanding of the difference between black and white, right and wrong, right? Light and dark. Okay. And now thank you for, that part of my life, but I'm leaving that behind now. And this is where I'm at. And that legacy piece the part that you become now, don't beat yourself up is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because you can leave the legacy of how you make people feel based on how you start doing things today and how you repetitively show up, and not with a big sign saying, look at me, with just the subtleness that we're talking about, just your presence. Okay. And I want to talk about more about using this phrase I just absolutely love. And I was telling Matt yesterday, the ripple effect. And, it's not, people have heard that. There's actually some books written on it and various things. And, people have used it for different things. And of course you can think of the ripple effect. I always go to the analogy and the visualization of dropping the pebble in the pond and the circles that ripple out. Okay. So I want to go a little deeper in this legacy thing about ripple. Okay. So when we live in, we know when we are understanding, and this is what we're all about here at WBNL, when we live with clarity and alignment, people notice. Okay. Mm-hmm. They may not say it, they may not show it, but your grounded presence, it really creates this permission, this safety. It creates a ripple. Now, by the same idea, it can create, if you're not in that space, if you're out of alignment, if you're unbalanced, that also creates a ripple. Mm-hmm. And that goes forward out. So the ripple effect really describes, okay, so the meaning, the definition, I'm going to read this because it's literally, I can use my own words, but I think this is really powerful. The ripple effect describes how one action, even a small action, can create a chain reaction with consequences that spread, affect more and more people or situations. And then just think of that visual of the pebble and going out and out and out and out. So every action, every word, your frequency, every intention that you emit, it really does send a wave out into the universe, out into the collective field. And it can be positive or negative. And when you really understand this, when you really, really embody this, you're like, okay, do I really want to go out and be part of all the negativity? No, I don't. I don't know about you. I know Matt doesn't. Okay. So
Nope.
your intentional ripple through repetition becomes your legacy. It's just one ordinary moment at a time. Again, we're not talking about you got to go. People just immediately think I have to go create this dynasty or it has to be something worthy. Who says? You say. Those are your things. And we're going to talk about that in our module 3. Those might be some of your limiting beliefs. So think of it like this. Legacy is not what we leave for people. It's what we leave in them. It's back to that feeling. What did you help create in the people that you impacted? And by the way, it's not about, it has to be millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people. It can just be however many people you're here to impact, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you the easiest, everybody has access to this little tiny thing.
Yeah.
To tell you, one of the easiest ways you can make an immediate impact in a situation or environment is just to smile. And boy, isn't that the easiest thing in the world you can do, right?
Yeah, smile, the gratitude, the pay
And
it
change
forward.
the whole
And it
whole
works. I
situation.
mean, you said earlier to pay it forward. I mean, it's happened to me. Has it happened to you that you've been in line to go get something like whatever, a Starbucks or something, says that person in front of you paid for you, and you're like, okay, I want to do the same thing. That's a very small example of a small gratitude paying it forward that then ripples that and then people tell the story of how it happened.
Yeah,
I'm still telling the story of how it happened.
right? Because you get to hear positive stories, which are things that we tend to hear not as many of. So let's keep that going. Hey, thanks for joining us today. And if any of this resonated with you, share it with someone you love. Give them a link to the podcast. Let them know you need to check out that Wandering But Not Lost podcast. We would love to have you come and listen to us or leave a comment anywhere on our platforms that you might be listening or watching this. And if you're doing if you're going to be doing the work of leaving things better, we want to have something we're going to give you. We have a little short 1-pager. It's called our mini legacy log, and it's just really prompts to help kind of think about what you can do throughout your day. It's a super short little 1-page, like I said, download. You can get that over at wanderingbuttnotlost.com. Go to our homepage. There's a download button right at the very top, and you can download this guide. You might not need this, but I'm going to tell you even something, and this is something that Jan and I both, we practice this. We practice what we preach on almost all the stuff we talk about. But certainly this, and even looking at it myself, it kind of spurred some ideas in my head too. So
You bet.
it's kind of cool. So if you like I said, go over to wanderingbuttnotlost.com, go to the downloads button, and you can download that download today.
That's it, right? So until the next time. We didn't do this on purpose, but we synced up. Be forever wandering, but not lost.
There you go.
And saved by the bell.